And starting right now on our main topic here on Mastering Dungeons, we are going to talk about the Daggerheart campaign frames. I teased this a little bit last week, so now let us dig in. What are campaign frames? Well, they're an optional structure to help you guide your campaign. It provides a step by step way for you to imagine and communicate your campaign to your players. So it provides players and GMs with a better experience through, quote, inspiration, tools, and mechanics to support the story your table will tell.
And this is neat, right? I mean, this is something that most RPGs aren't providing you with. Like, they'll either say, here's our world, it's the world of whatever, and this is what it's like, and we're done. And what do you mean other worlds? Or later settings come out, maybe the default setting, then additional settings, and those settings might astound you with the way that the rules have been sort of shaped to create things. But no, right here in this book, we get, what if we are in a futuristic world, or a super dark apocalypse world, or forest overgrown world, and all that is right here in a fairly slim format, uh, which is it's neat. So I like a lot what's being attempted here.
Yep. Disclaimer here. We love this. We love this. We're going to talk about it. We may get down into the nitty gritty and we may nitpick a few things here and there. Does not mean we don't like it. Just means we are game designers looking at this in terms of game design. Excellent. Disclaimer done. Let's dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are the components of a campaign frame? They're a
And
pitch.
I'm gonna add one more thing, Shawn.
One more disclaimer.
Also, our
Yeah.
critical analysis of this does not mean we think we would do it better.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. We are learning. We
Yeah,
are
yeah.
learning through other people's successes as well as through other people's failures, as well as our own failures. So here we go. Let's talk about campaign frame components. It starts by saying this can be a pitch that you present to your players.
Mm-hmm.
It can be suggestions for the tone, the feel, the themes, and the cultural touchstones that help shape the campaign that you're about to take part in. It will be an overview of the campaign's background. It will be guidance on how certain communities, ancestries, and classes fit into that particular setting. It will be principles for the players and the game masters to consider during the campaign. It will be a unique setting distinction, setting it apart from other settings and campaigns. It will include an inciting incident to launch the campaign. It will have any special mechanics that it will be used during the campaign, and it will provide questions to consider during a session 0. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 basic components of this.
Yeah, and they're kind of
Thoughts?
two others. So one thing
Yeah.
is, if you look through these, you see that they have a complexity.
Mhm.
We aren't really told what the range is here, but the ones that are included range from 1 to 4 in complexity.
Yep.
And then the other thing is a campaign frame map. This is a map that is mentioned in all this section, but you use it for the campaign, and it has already on it, it's a black and white line art drawing, very nice, that'll show kind of neat, inspiring view of what the world looks like, with some named locations on it. And then it has a box of the list of other places the players and GM will place on the map before the start of the campaign. And we'll probably talk about that campaign creation process in a future show.
None of this is completely new, right? If you've played other games, if you've gone through other TTRPG setting books, guides, rules, some of this will be recognizable. Building the world as you play or before it starts, something that happens in lots of different games. Setting up questions for your players happens in session zeros all the time. Uh, but it's always good to see one more take of it. It's always good to see how a different designer for a different game in this particular situation sort of sets it up and lays it out.
Yeah, and it's a neat strategy that they're going for in having all of these different settings that are very distinct. They are, these are totally different experiences you get from one versus the other,
Right.
um, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, as I was reading through it, the one thing that stuck out in my mind, and it's a matter of degree, was one of the standard tips for DMs for a D&D game or for most games is, don't make your players sit through a lore dump about your world before you play because they are going to lose it, likely going to lose interest long, long before you're able to start rolling dice. And as I was reading this section, it wasn't like a warning bell going off in my head. It's like a klaxon, but it was with the right group and an interactive um, engagement in this way, it could be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Without player input, all of this information could turn into that dreaded lore dump.
Yeah.
So you need to weigh the attention span and the interest of your players versus this need to communicate these ideals. And these ideals need to be communicated for sure.
Yeah.
It's just how you do it. It's like the lecture at school versus the interactive,
Yeah.
right? Interactive lesson.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, if you've done any teaching or if you've spent enough time with them, you know that you can get through the big dense lecture, but you have to break it up and know how to inject that energy into it so that you see the relevance of it and pause to reflect on it and so on.
Mhm,
And that doesn't easily happen from the page. There is to me a disconnect between what this wants to do and what it
mhm,
accomplishes doing. And I'd love to
mhm,
see a version 2, um, where it is more towards, like, for all that they start with pitching the campaign pitch, we'll go through this in detail, but the campaign frame breakdown does not follow the order of which things are in each campaign frame. So that's A.
right.
So why am I jumping around? You could have just sorted it in the order that I'll use it. The information is often, oh, and optionally look at here or this other place. So now I'm even more so going through and trying to decide what it's like. I have to create my own document. Wasn't that the
Mhm,
point that you made a document for me with the campaign frame? Why do I have to create my sub campaign frame to now
right.
decide what to actually share? Why is it so incredibly different what information I may or may not share? I think that this is just a little shy of being at the revision point that I would have liked.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. What do you think?
Why don't we go through it
Yeah.
step by step as they presented in the breakdown, as you
Yeah.
said, which is slightly different than
Yeah.
the steps that they gave in the overview.
Yeah, or
And
the appearance in the actual book itself, because the
right.
other thing I'll say is that when you look at a campaign frame, the first page is great, right? Like I'm looking right now at the Witherwild. When an invading
Mhm,
nation attacks an ancient forest deity, a violent overgrowth spreads throughout the land. And then I got the pitch, tone and feel, themes, touchstones. That's great. This looks like something I should just give to the players. Then I go to the next page and there's all this text in the overview, then the
right.
communities, then the ancestries, then the classes, and this is page after page distinctions, that are more than one page. The inciting insight, the campaign mechanics. Oh wow, I actually covered a good number of pages there, and that was surprising to me that it's actually that dense.
Yep. Yep. So what the campaign frame breakdown in the book says is that step one is the pitch of the campaign. So, which quote is a paragraph or so. You read that to the players. Then you can pull in the touchstone sections, the tone and feel or themes if desired. So the pitch is right. This is the world and the adventure that we want. I want to lead you through
Hmm.
the story that we want to create. Touchstones are this is Indiana Jones meets right
Yeah.
Casablanca. That's Eberron. Uh, those never do anything for me.
Huh. I think they can for me. Like when you say Indiana
Yeah,
Jones, I immediately, oh, okay, cool. It's
right.
that kind of thing. I think the problem is that you're going to have a lot of different ages, and media is so fractured that I think
Yep,
anybody from our generation, you say Indiana Jones, and everybody, just about 99.9% of people know exactly what you mean. But now, even if you say something very popular, Princess Mononoke, some number of people know it. But there's so
mhm,
much entertainment these days that as you go down these lists,
yeah,
you will inevitably hit in some of these campaign frames more than others where you just go, I don't know what most of these are. Are these video games? Are they movies? I have no idea what they are. And I think
right.
then it really kind of loses itself without a little table of where to go off and search for it, or you have to go off and
The,
web search it.
I think there is a definite crossover between like screenwriting and
Mm,
RPG design, but it's not a complete crossover.
mhm,
Sometimes it may actively distract from the the thing you're trying to do when you present a game as you would present like a pitch for a movie. And for me, this it's blank meets blank is
mhm.
total like screenwriter Hollywood
Sure.
trying to drum up excitement by saying three very popular things.
In a world.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
and for some people I'm sure it's wonderful because if you're pitching this to a group of players and you one of those four or three touchstones you say they're excited about, great. But on the off chance you say something they're not excited about, then it's a negative. Or if they don't, like you say, don't know it, then it's just sort of it's it's trying to pitch something in a way that maybe some players will get behind, but I don't
Hmm.
know. I know I
Hmm.
don't, and I can assume a few others don't as
Yeah.
well.
And that's where it's that interesting that it's optional that you share the touchstones, right? Is it for the player? Is it for us? It's like it's your call.
Yeah. Yeah, tone and feel that for me makes more sense, right?
Hmm.
This is going to be dark. This is going to be light. This is going to be humorous. This is going to be serious. This is going to be romantic. All
Yeah,
of those things for me actually affect play.
yeah,
And so that's what I'm very interested in hearing.
yeah, and
And
themes as well.
obviously, yeah, themes as well would
Hmm.
be something. Am I really interested in spending 3 hours a week delving into these themes?
Yeah, and then so as part of this pitch, we read the pitch, we maybe pull in some of these other sections, we answer questions and make sure they're
Mhm.
interested.
Yeah.
Okay, that's step one.
Yep. Step two is providing the foundations. So you give the players the overview and the player principles. What's the overview? It provides a page or half a page of lore, player principles, points to guide character creation. So this is here is the world, and here is how to create a character with the rules within this world.
Yeah, though not the communities, and all that. We'll get that
Correct.
later, but it's this. It's player principles are the like bullet points with then a paragraph underneath it of what kind of character you should make thematically, right? Make the
Mhm.
invasion personal, treat death with importance, embrace vulnerability, right? Like those are three for the Witherwild. And then they add some
Right.
pieces in this, think about who you might have lost in these struggles or things like that that give you guidance within them, which is very interesting. Um, if you can make it through that overview to then apply this
Right.
lens to it.
Yeah. And part of me would switch steps 2 and 3.
Mm,
Um, but I think it's really personal preference because for me, step 3 is guide the characters, which is as the players decide what their characters will be, like provide communities, ancestries, and class sections. So this is sort of the chicken and the egg of,
hmm
do you
hmm
provide information on the narrative side of things, or do you provide information on the game mechanical side of things?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and some players are going to come in wanting to know, what should I build?
hmm
And I hate that word build, used in many different contexts, but in this case, it's I need to choose a class, an ancestry, and a community. What does this mean in your world? If I am orderborn in this particular setting, what
Right.
does that mean? And for me, that does both already. That
Yeah.
does both of, if you're orderborn, these are the themes that your character is going to be struggling with or
Right.
considering.
Yeah, and it I think it is interesting. You almost need both of these to happen, because those, you can have a situation where, like, I think one of the settings, Age of Umbra, maybe Pixie, when you make a fairy, it looks sort of corrupted, and
Mhm.
you might go, well, that's not what I wanted. So then I'm going to make a
Right.
different, right. So it's important to know those pieces. Um,
Exactly.
Or, could I be not that way and be unusual and stand out for that,
Mhm.
right? I don't look corrupted and strange, twisted. Um, in step two, there's also the ability or the option to include distinctions, which are more
Mhm.
important world lore stuff that make it stand out from other settings, and campaign mechanics, which are special campaign rules that the party would deal with. Sometimes characters, it's not character generation things, but it's things like when you rest, you might have a special mechanic. Or
Mhm.
when people spellcast, here's something you got to deal with. And that's interesting, but it can be a lot, as we'll see.
Yeah.
So steps 2 and 3 are very meaty, and they're very oriented around, the specific information you need to know to make your characters. I think the idea is that at the end of step 3, you probably have created your character, or you're well on your way towards that.
Yep. That makes step 4, build the map. So you provide a copy of the campaign frame map, and then you add locations collectively.
And I did just look, Shawn. There are actually at the back of the book in the appendix, the campaign maps do appear there as well, in addition to
Okay, cool.
downloading them. So you can download them and print them, which makes it nice, but they do appear in the book.
Awesome. I don't have a hard copy of the book, so I didn't
Yeah.
couldn't check you on that. Uh, so that's step 4, build the map, and then do the normal session 0 prep described in the book. Uh, could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And this is where another point, another issue I have with this, or it's not really so much an issue, it's not a problem, but I wish more could have happened here is, I think it'll be good in another show. We might talk through the actual campaign process, but the campaign process includes various session 0 things you ask each other, both at the player level and at the character level. It includes things like safety tools and those kinds of considerations. But it includes a number of a process where you build the map together and collaborate on sort of placing things, right? So that you take this map that exists, and if you imagine like the Sword Coast, and yeah, there's Neverwinter, but instead of it telling you, where one of the smaller towns, like a Greenest or something might be located, you describe where it is and talk about it. And
Mhm.
that's neat. It's a lot like some of the things I really like about Fate with that collaborative campaign
Yeah.
construction, where at the end of it, you could have a whole lot of knowledge around it. So you're kind of doing this here in this part in the process at the end of it, having been told all this information, which makes sense, but it's a lot. And I'd be curious how this really would play out to try to use this, because to me, step 4 and 5 were already a lot.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
now I've got this other framework process. So it feels, yeah, it's a good amount to do it. And like, if you think of the game that we played with Tom Christie, if we had also done
Mhm.
all these steps, Oh, that would have taken a lot of time. Now, maybe worth it for a long-term campaign, but it's a lot.
Yeah. I've said this before, and it's so true. There have been sessions of Fate where we've built characters together and built the world
Mhm.
as you're supposed to. And by the time we're done, we don't want to play. And I don't just mean that night, I mean at all. Because it feels like we've done the fun part. It
Yeah.
feels like we've
Yeah.
already told the story.
Yeah.
And
And the other part of it is true where sometimes you have so many neat ideas in play, you can't wait to play, right? But
yeah, it's true. It's true.
mhm.
So that's step 4. Step 5 is to run the actual session
Mhm.
0 by choosing session 0 questions from the specific campaign frame to ask the players.
Yeah. Yeah, and then step 6 is begin the adventure. So here we're using the inciting incident, which is provided, or you can write your own, we're told, to start the campaign. So a thing happens, we get this loose establishment of what's going on, and we got to deal with it. And they note here that, feel free to change up this campaign frame to fit your preferences. So, yeah, I think when I read this, it was funny reading this process, campaign frame breakdown, which is just half a page, but reading that explanation actually for me decreased my enjoyment of what I'd seen in the campaign frames themselves,
Right.
because it made me kind of go, wow, this actually is a hard thing to take on. I've got to
Mhm.
parse this information, sell my players on it. And I think that written a different way, I would have gotten the opposite of impression of, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll give this section to my players. They'll get excited. We'll come back and make characters with these special rules presented to them. And I'm saying the same things, but it's that presentation.
Yeah.
To me,
And
this felt like it raised questions and cautions and made it sound intimidating when it could have
yeah.
done the opposite.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if it's just the idea of seeing it explained versus how it would actually work.
Maybe.
Uh, and I won't know until I try to do it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and do it incorrectly and do it as written, and then figure out ways based on the players, based on my own interest, how to change it up. So yeah, I think it's all good information, but like any information, when it's explained in detail, it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I was really impressed by the Fate system of collaborative campaign creation that appears in Dresden Files, is that it wasn't overwhelming because it took a concept you understand, right, your modern world, and then
Mhm.
said, and now you tell
Mhm.
me these various things that are happening. Let's together do that,
Right.
and that pace of it just plays out fairly slowly
Yeah.
to where you all have had a hand in it. As you said, maybe you build something you don't love, but you will certainly know it and understand it well.
Yeah.
Do you want to look at one of the campaign frames?
Let's dive into the Age of Umbra campaign frame, because this is the one that Critical Role is currently playing and streaming.
Hmm.
Um, on that 1 to 4 star complexity, Age of Umbra gets 3. And it's interesting because in the book, or at least in my digital copy, it said something like most campaigns are very low complexity. Like a typical fantasy campaign, is like 1 or 2.
Hmm.
And I'm like, are they? It
Hmm.
maybe, I guess. I don't know. Uh,
Hmm.
so what's the pitch for the Age of Umbra campaign frame?
Yeah, so this is, get ready. A century has passed since the god king Othodias betrayed the pantheon, provoking divine punishment and abandonment by the gods that left the realm of the Halcyon domain shattered, desolate, and eternally cursed. Throughout this shadow choked land of decaying fortresses and dreadful monstrosities, surviving communities cling to hope in the face of lightless oblivion. In an Age of Umbra campaign, you'll play heroic survivors who protect their community from the terrors beyond their walls, venture out into the unknown to hunt the nightmares that twist and grow with each fallen soul, seek answers to the curses that corrupt this world, and perhaps even discover a way to change its fate.
Okay. So yeah, it gets across. It
Hmm.
gets across, I think, what it does. The tone
Yep.
and feel is provided as ancient, daunting, epic, grim, ominous, terrifying, and tragic.
Dark.
Yeah, which sort of sums up how I feel right now. Ancient, grim,
They
terrifying,
forgot
tragic.
exhausted, overworked.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, I can get down with all of that.
Mhm.
Themes are apocalypse, corruption, darkness versus light, hope, redemption, and survival. And what are the touchstones?
So this is Dark Souls. That's a video game, right?
I
Kingdom
believe
Death
so. Yep.
Monster. I don't know what that is. Berserk. Don't know what that is. Seventh Seal. I'm pretty sure it's a movie. And
Hmm.
Blasphemous. I don't know what that is.
Yep.
I know
So
some people are outraged by my not knowing what these things are, but
I'm
I don't play a
outraged
ton of
as
video games. And yeah.
I have had, if the Seventh Seal is the movie from the like 80s or 90s, that's the only touchstone I have there.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I was thinking. Yeah, so I guess the idea is you just run a web search on all these things to figure out what it is, or maybe you're supposed to totally identify with these. And good job. I'm a kid too.
okay,
Uh,
so you looked at the overview.
mhm.
All right. What was your takeaway from the campaign frame overview for this particular campaign?
Yeah, so it's a lot, and it's true of these other campaign frames. This one is a solid page. Like it is, small text, the whole page, no art. Um, and if I break it down, here's what it's saying: the God King conspired to shift the balance of celestial power, and for this, the veiled gods rained down cataclysms and abandoned the world. So now the world is slowly dying. A big part of this slowly dying is the soul blight. When a mortal dies, they rise again as a corrupted revenant bent on destroying everything they loved in their former life. So that's bad. If
Mhm.
that risen body is destroyed, the spirit then retreats into the ethereal mass known as Umbra, seeking others to haunt and corrupt. So it's not even done after that. So that's
Okay.
bad. Everybody who dies makes the world worse. The
Mhm.
enduring are the survivors who pick through the ruins. Beasts are also sometimes corrupted and mutated, so wilderness is unsafe, and the creatures also have a type of blighted souls too. It's not just people. We are given notable ruins, strongholds that will survive with names and stuff, and other locations of import. I kind of forget all of it after I read it, but okay, that stuff exists. And we are told hope continues in various ways: rumors, glimpses of remnants of divine power in lost shrines, heroes that fell great evils, and those for searched ways to redeem lost souls. So, of course, this is what the characters could do to bring this hope back into the world.
Mhm. It it's all there. So let's talk about the communities. This is where the rules of the
Hmm.
game start to interact with the campaign frame. The game's core communities get descriptions and questions specific to the frame. So, for example, Highborn, they're extremely rare, often based on the ghost of a former political power or a newly forged tyranny built on recovered or stolen resources. So, who are the leaders of a community? How did your bloodline manage to accumulate resources and reputation? So, as opposed to a high fantasy setting where there's a king or queen or other
Right.
nobility who have this sort of lineage that allows, this is, you probably stole power from someone. So, you're
Right.
highborn because of probably
Yeah.
corruption of some kind.
Yeah. And how did you? What's your particular role in
Yeah.
this? Is interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Wildborn is when a player creates a Wildborn character, they should consider how their character's homeland carved its place of peace among the twisting vines and brambles. What landmark within the forest has appeared in your dreams since childhood? What do you think it means? That sort of makes
Cool.
sense.
Hmm.
How do they handle the ancestries for this frame?
So they give us details for four of them. For example, clanks are often carved from stone and iron and were originally developed as vessels for holy spirits and messengers. Many just stopped working and are now statues. So that's kind of,
Mhm.
cool. You can think of
Yeah,
neat things that you would show a Clank player to make them go, oh, look, what, all these things stop working in this squares. And fairies are more sensitive to the soul blight than other ancestries, causing their physical appearance to develop in jagged and monstrous ways. So that's a
mhm,
real, again, like I was saying before,
yeah,
something that could cause you to go, oh, I don't want to play this, or wow, I'm super excited to play this, but it's a big distinctive piece.
sure. And then classes are handled in this way. The Aether Weave is what spellcasting classes use to draw their power. It's difficult to teach that, and many secrets have been lost. So players should feel a responsibility for this gift.
Hmm.
And the Splendor domain, the change is healing is rare, so characters using this domain may draw attention.
Yeah, and I know in the Age of Umbra campaign, one of the characters, it was I think a guardian, she wears this armor from a fallen order that she actually conceals the fact that she's wearing it because it would draw so much attention that she's wearing the armor of this legendary group, and sort of trying to be heroic and embody their principles. So it's like a detriment to be associated with that, right? Like you've gone too far, and that's kind of neat. And this idea of, yeah, like healing being a rarity and standing out, that you can use it. So that's neat. That's a fun aspect to play into.
Yeah. So what other highlights do you want to look at for this campaign frame?
Yeah, I mean, so the player principles, I just are one sentence kind of: remember that not all darkness is evil, and then some descriptions. Those are kind of neat. It just gives you some guidance on how to play. The GM principles are similar, right? Shine light in the darkness often, emphasize compassion amidst hardship. Neat stuff. The distinctions are very interesting. There is a lot there that to it's sort of additional aspects of the campaign world that you need to consider, right? Magic being suspicious, the rarity of respite. And then we get the inciting incident. Um, and here, this is a good example of the approach it takes, where it says, recently, a hunting band led by Huntmaster Evrados went off into the Shulk Chasm in search of resources. They stumbled upon an eroded, forgotten temple to an obscure veiled god. In this process, Evrados, the Huntmaster, is killed. The hunters return to town, but as they're telling everybody about this horrible thing that happened, and so sad that he died, they hear Evrados' screams. So the hunters go out to see what's happening, and now their screams join the chorus.
Mhm.
So you better check it out.
Yeah.
But which is funny, and so you must now
Mhm.
go figure out why these folks are screaming. What has claimed them, twisted them, whatever. What is in this forgotten temple? That's the inciting incident, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's nice. And then the campaign mechanics that change the way the core rules work a bit. So the strength of hate. Enemies can become Umbra touched and have a wider crit range reflecting their mutations. PCs can also gain scars, but as they do, they deal extra damage equal to their number of scars. And when a PC marks their last hope slot with a scar, they don't retire, instead, succumbing to the Umbra's influence and charging forever into the dark to join the terrors that stalk the lightless places. Uh, we get rules for a sacred pyre, which helps protect settlements. There's the lurking darkness rule. When a party finishes a short or long rest away from the sacred pyre, there's a table of things that can happen, often giving the game master fear to work with later. And if you die because of the soul blight, the game master can spend a fear to raise you as a shambling zombie, two fear to raise you as a brawny zombie that's bent on destroying those you cared for. So you've got that going for you.
Yeah. And then we get the session zero questions, and these are just kind of things like, why do your character, or what do your characters see when they stare into the inky void of night for too long?
Mhm.
But also, how deadly does the group wish this campaign to be? Would you enjoy possible churn of many character deaths across a campaign, or do you want a more balanced flow where danger is real, but not stacked so hard against you. So you can see that mix of character versus player questions that help you kind of cement where you want your character to go, and the campaign itself as well.
Yeah. So overall, I think I like that they have presented this, they thought this through,
Mm-hmm.
and they have made that what I would say, you know, not just first steps, probably second steps into getting something together that would be really, really helpful for a game master, especially a game master coming from a different game,
Yeah.
say maybe the world's most popular role-playing game, uh, and giving you some examples of how you can get people to play this game. Uh,
Yeah.
but as you said, Teos, maybe we need a couple more iterations of this,
Maybe.
which will come with experience, right? It'll
Yeah.
come with game masters using it and saying, this worked, this didn't, I did this instead, or I didn't do this, and getting to a point where maybe we can cut it down a bit,
Yeah.
and get people doing the most important thing during character creation while getting to the game a little bit quicker,
That is true.
if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, you almost wonder if I just ran with the inciting incident with pregens, would I have been better off? If I played the hunters that went off with pregens, that might be all you need, right, to really pull in everybody and make it exciting. Should we also say, very quickly, just the campaign frames provided. So there's the Age of Umbra, there's the Witherwild we mentioned, which is an invaded nation attacking a forest deity, and this causes virulent overgrowth throughout the land in a very kind of neat, complex. Both everybody's suffering. What do you do? It's unclear kind of way of going about it. Five Banners Burning, which is a sort of Song of Ice and Fire, all these kingdoms fighting each other kind of concept. Look, I used a touchstone.
Hey,
Beast Feast,
never heard of
that has the delicious and dungeon touchstone. So this is that for various reasons, you must go into the giant dungeon and cook up all the monsters you find. It's got some hilarious art and concepts in there, but also some bits to it that I thought were, okay, that's more clever than I expected out of this campaign frame. But that definitely gets into more lighthearted kind of thing. And then the one that I really didn't expect, Motherboard. In a world where magic takes the form of the technology left behind by a long-fallen civilization, a new threat rises as a malicious virus spreads through the machines that wander the wastes. Did not expect that I'd see that there.
Yeah.
But it's very cool and shows the extent and to which this campaign frames can go. And the art, is all very mechanistic. It looks like, Numenera or something like that. And people are wearing power armor and using devices. And there's a lot there to support that of how to construct things. Oh, also Colossus of the Drylands, which has the complexity rating of 4. A prosperous region of gunslingers and outlaws has fallen into terror as colossal creatures awaken from beneath the earth. This one is said as being like Shadow of the Colossus, Deadlands, and things like that. And that's also a thing that I sort of more steampunky and so on that I would not have expected as a crossover here. So pretty neat.
Yeah. I thought of Wild Wild West when I saw that. For those of you who will get none of that reference unless you're like 60 or older.
You always should think of the Wild Wild West.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Teos, for sharing this campaign frame discussion with us. Thank you, everyone out there listening. We appreciate your support. You can support us like so many others do by going to patreon.com/masteringdnd and become a Master of Realms supporter. And we thank our Master of Realms supporters profusely. You can become a Master of Dungeons as well, or you can become a Master of the Multiverse and you get your name mangled by me in real time, starting with Agile Monk of the Fantasy Companion Workshops. We have Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing. We have Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios, Craig Bailey, Dave Bastiensen, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Calvin Bridges of Alos, Robo Ballon, Kevin Griswell, Dead Inertia DM, Evil John, Evan at Nimble Co., Will Doyle, Andy Edmonds at Nerdronomicon.com, James Fisher, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, William Harshman of Runeforge Tabletop Gaming, Ben Heisler and Paige Lakeman, Sean Hurst, Hyperlexic, the Jaunty Mantis TTRPG podcast, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, The Mighty Jerd, JL at Tileforge, JR of the Twilight Perspective, JT Evans, that's the three J's, Brian King, Jim Klingler, Chad Lynch, Paul Mata, the Mathemagician, Eric Mengi, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Trey McLemore, John Mickey, Mighty Zeus, Sean Molly, Falcon, Neil, Tom Nelson, creator of the Deck of Player Safety, JT Norris of DT and Dragons. Did I say JT? DT Norris of DT and Dragons, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Philip N. Lindsay, Frog Prince at Tentacle Squelching Wetly, Postfiction RPG Audio, Ricardo, who might adventure, Robert Pasley, Vladimir Prenner from Croatia, Pugdus, Ozymandias Rex, Runner Rick, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Andy Shockney, Krishna Samosa, Tim Smith, Spark from Dunner Games, Josh and Lee Wanika of the Tabletop Journeys podcast, Talos the Stormlord, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Thrace, Joe Tyler, Marcelo de Velasquez, the Valiant DM, James Walton, Graham Ward, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Javier Waziak, Waterford Wizard, Chris Webster, Zach Types, and Zawalt Wintry. Thank you so much for your support. If you can't help us by becoming a patron, please help us by giving us a review wherever you listen to this show, or go to YouTube and subscribe and give us the likes and the thumbs up and all of that happy stuff. Teos, what have you been up to on your socials?
Well, you can find me at alphastream.org. I have been making those learn to play videos. I did Pirate Borg last time. That was a lot of fun. I've been enjoying the heck out of that game. Where do we find you?
You know where to find me. We're out of here. So what are we going to do now?
Well, we're going to go build the campaign frame of our lives.
We are. We are definitely going to do that. I'm going to be off to my third, fourth, and fifth meetings of the day through tonight. So thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.